Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you all for joining us here for the Prowess Live. We're back this week after taking last week. Had our fabulous masterclass, and it is great to see so many of you joining us here today. So many new names. I'm really excited about today's show. I think it is a great expansion of a lot of things that we were talking about, a lot of things that I have heard said in chats with you. I think today's going to be a very valuable session. So to get things started, as we typically do, our one word or our opening question that we always have. Today's question is, what's the last thing you taught yourself, right? So it could be a craft, it could be a sport, it could be language that you're learning, a recipe. What's something that you've taught yourself recently? And for me, I will admit, I tried to teach myself crochet. It was one of those things where I always felt like I needed to know how to do this. And I learned the stitch and then I put it down and said, okay, I've done that. Don't think I need to do it for the rest of my life, but it was one thing that I did feel good about. Okay. Yes. And so, yeah, teaching yourself a new recipe, that's always a good one. Taking on one, yes, your grandma's recipe, that's always, when there's that legacy behind it, that's a tough one. Okay, we're going to be talking more today about how to, take a look at the things that we really want to do. And that's why I'm so excited about our guest today. First, who am I? I'm Leah. I'm here with Prowess Project. What we do here at Prowess is we help women that are pivoting in their careers to become online business managers. They're the people that have always been behind the scenes, the utility players, the Jill of all trades, and now they're ready to take that step in their career to become the ops person to help CEOs that are growing and scaling their business. So we do training, and then we help match them up with those CEOs that are looking for their ops partner. And I'm very excited that we're chatting with Kim Carpenter today. She has a fabulous business that I can't wait for you guys to hear more about. And again, this is something what I love about her work is I see a lot of the things I hear OBMs wanting to do reflected in her content. And again, I'm just excited about this conversation. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's so incredible to be here with you all today. I'm going to say incredible. It's great to be here with you all.
Absolutely. Kim, I would love for you just to explain who you are, how you got to where you are. I love your story and what you're doing so much.
You bet. It's a long one, but I'll try to make it brief. So, like so many of you, I had a first career in corporate advertising. So, I actually worked at ad agencies. And then when digital came about, and yes, I'm dating myself a little bit, I pivoted to work for IT professional services firms and quickly climbed the ladder into positions in client services. So my last position was in a New York City firm that had a office with a view of the Empire State Building, and I was director of client services, and I had 30 direct reports, and I was miserable. And nobody understood why I was miserable, but you all know exactly why I was miserable. It was the golden handcuffs. I felt like I made it. I had an office where many people were sitting in the middle of the building, with no windows, and a lot of prestige and a lot of power. And I just knew that this wasn't what I wanted to be doing or was really supposed to be doing with my life. And around the time that I was having that epiphany, I also went through a divorce. I hired a coach for myself. So I fell in love with coaching and leadership development. And I thought, how can I just do this? I really love this. I was using those coaching skills with my direct reports and just falling in love with that coaching process, but had no clue how I was going to do that. And so around that same time, my back went out. I had herniated L4, L5, extreme pain. I could only sleep like 4 or 5 hours a night. And it was like, what is going on? I didn't fall down. I didn't have a ski accident or anything. Like, it just started killing me. And I had a really close friend. New Yorkers are really direct and straight. And so my friend said, Kim, you are literally and figuratively out of alignment. Your back is out of alignment. Your life is out of alignment. Just go be a coach. But I didn't know how to do that. And I was so exhausted and in so much pain. And I decided to take a sabbatical. So I took a year-long sabbatical. I had some savings. I sold a lot of my stuff. I've sold my personal belongings a few times in my life. And I'm not saying you guys need to do this, but I'm letting you know what I did. And I was 35. So I also wasn't like in my 20s. I was 35 and divorced, and I sold most of my stuff, put a few things in storage, and I went to India. This was before Eat, Pray, Love came out. But I had a meditation practice, and I had some friends who were saying, if you go to these different ashrams, it's a great way to just decompress, get back to yourself. And I also knew I could start my coach training program online and access that from India. So I went to India for 6 months. I lived in an ashram. I started studying coaching. I was meditating 3 times a day. It like completely changed me and my life. And then I met some friends in India and traveled around. I spent a month in Israel. I spent a few months in Cyprus, Germany. I did go to Italy. I didn't get to Bali yet, but the Eat, Pray, Love story. But after that year, I went back to New York, and I just was like, I don't fit here. I literally don't fit here in this culture. I went back and actually worked for my old firm as a freelancer for a couple of months. So there was a lot of like up and down, back and forth in this journey. And I knew it wasn't going to be in New York. Like New York was just too hard, too expensive to start my own business. And I wanted to live in a place that was kind of felt like that ashram, like that smaller community with people that I could feel known, and that it had a little bit of a spiritual bent because I enjoy yoga and meditation, things like that. So I talked to a former mentor of mine who was living in Canada, and he said, you should come here. It's beautiful. It's nature. People move here because they want to do extreme outdoor sports and have a lifestyle and, have balance. And so I was like, Canada, really? I don't know. I don't really like winter. But I got a flight from New York to Spokane, Washington, and drove 3 hours to Nelson, British Columbia. That's 10,000 people, and spent 4 days there. And while I was there, my friend had another friend who had a small design firm in that town. And the woman who was running that agency and renting my friend's house in town gave her notice while I was there on vacation.
Wow.
So he called me and said, Kim, okay, sometimes things are just meant to be. And so I talk about kismet, right? And so I went and had an interview over breakfast with the 26-year-old hotshot designer from San Francisco that started this design agency that was like really renowned and award winning in this tiny little town. And he said, can I afford you? And I said, probably not, but I think I could probably help you grow this agency. And I need to tell you, I'm going to be a coach. And so I negotiated a 30-hour work week so I could start my coaching business on the side. And I did that for 2 years, right? So again, it's not like, oh, I just quit everything and then, but I did bet on myself, and I took action. I didn't just think about it for a really long time. I was like, I went to that town in Canada, and then life showed up to meet me where I was. And I had that strong intention. I'm going to be a coach. So I immediately started taking coaching clients on the side. And after 2 years, I was able to sponsor my own visa in Canada, which was the other hiccup there. I couldn't just, start my own business. I had to be able to legally do that and make money. And then transitioned and started my business actually in Canada, and then moved to California after 7 years living in Canada, and ran my agency there. And then my dad got cancer again. And so I came back and now I'm in Texas, but I've been doing this for the last 17 years. And, I'd love to tell you that I never looked back and questioned, but that's not true. I did. There were many times where I was like, oh, should I just go back to corporate? Like, this is so hard. And it's different, when you bet on yourself and you do your own thing. But I just kept checking into that alignment, that I talked about. And it was like, no, I'm meant to make a bigger difference. And I can make a bigger difference having my own business and serving multiple clients than I can if I go into corporate and I get to work with just my team or my organization. And so now I'm so glad that I committed to myself and I bet on myself. And I have this image for myself of like putting all the chips in, it's just like all the chips on Red 7. And that's what we're doing. And, so that's a very long story where I am today. I want to check out the chat. Yeah.
Oh. Yes, Kim, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that, because that's such powerful insight of like what it looks like to, like you said, to bet on yourself and to take that risk, right? Like, I think we're all a little risk adverse when it comes to our careers. I have so many questions now. I was taking some notes here, but can you share a little bit more? Like, you kept talking about your vision and being in alignment with that. So was it one thing that you're like, this is it, I'm marching towards, this is exactly how it has to look? Or did that evolve over time?
Yeah, it really evolved. And I like to say this to people, your vision's going to evolve because we evolve, right? We are not a fixed thing. And I think that I always used to admire, Olympic athletes, gymnasts who were like, when they were 3, they started doing gymnastics and then they just committed to that and got better at that. Like, not all of us are meant to be that. And thank goodness, right? If the world was just only full of those specialists in that narrow way, it would kind of be a boring place. So there's many of us like myself, like, I'm multi-passionate. I really, when I worked in advertising, I kept saying, well, Mercedes-Benz is really cool, but what are we doing for the world that's good? MasterCard, like my clients were, MasterCard, Mercedes, Visa, Purex, it's just like, okay, pharmaceuticals, I felt like, and then at that point I was like, I'm a drug pusher. What's going on here? So I knew that I just needed to take an action. And I think in the beginning, I did things because that's what I needed, right? It's like healer, heal thyself, or teacher, teach thyself. Like, my very first coaching programs were about doing the work you love. That was the name of my program. And I had former colleagues from corporate do the program. And my former boss from corporate actually took my program. He's like, I want to join your program. And he said, not because I want to change my career, but because I've never done anything for myself in my whole life. I've only spent money on the kids. And he really wanted to be a sommelier. And so out of that course, he took his first sommelier course. He's like, I'm not going to become a professional, but I really love wine. He lives on Long Island in New York. And so that's the kind of stuff that just lights me up, right? When I knew that I want to help people light up and have a lit up and aligned life, and wherever that evolves to, wherever that goes to. So I think it's good to just, do some journaling, work with a coach to get clear on whatever that is for you. What's the direction you wish you could go in? A great coaching question. If you couldn't fail, what would you do? What choices would you make? If you weren't worried about not having the money and not having stability, like, what just comes up? And then pay attention to that. Because I think it's those starts as a little whisper. If I had listened to the little whispers in my life of like, maybe you should be doing something different, I probably wouldn't have had herniated disc and so much pain and, all of that. And then like had to blow up my life and go to India.
But that was probably the upside of blowing up your life, is getting to travel like that. We all love to do that. What's coming to me is that you're talking about that the whisper, right? And the wanting to do something else. But you also had this magical way of pairing that with your skills. Did that, again, was there intention behind that, or did that just sort of align for you?
You know, it's really crystal clear now that I look back on the last 20, 25 years. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, it all makes sense now looking back. But at the time, it didn't always make sense, right? So I was first a graphic designer. Then I was an IT project manager because I was much better at the people side of the business than pushing pixels around. I didn't enjoy it. I loved working with people. Then I climbed the ladder out of project management into leading the user experience department of that agency, advertising design, digital design. Then I moved into client services. So I knew I had skills as a designer. I could do some of my own marketing. As a project manager, I could organize myself. I was a consultant, so I knew how to talk to clients, close clients, create contracts, negotiate contracts. So I had business skills, and all of that's incredibly valuable when you're doing your own business. And then I knew mostly in my heart that I wanted to coach and have people be unleashed and just live a really authentic, fulfilled life where myself and so many of my colleagues in corporate just weren't. It was like the grind, no balance, especially in consulting. Like everybody had at that time, BlackBerry.
Mm-hmm.
We had Blackberries and pagers, and we were on call all the time. Like that was just part of the deal. So I really, I definitely used my skills, but I didn't limit it to that. I also am a lifelong learner, and I knew if I want to be a coach, I'm going to enroll in a coach program. And I did a 2-year coach program, the deep dive training, because I wanted to be excellent at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just gaining some knowledge, but that's so easy to do now, right? I know you guys offer an amazing program very rapidly, ramping someone up to be able to be an online business manager and take over someone else's business. And because there are some things that are a little bit different than if you're have a big corporate budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to be lean and scrappy, but so much is transferable to that. And so, and we all have our gifts, right? Some of us are great writers. Some of us do have that artistic graphic bent. Some of us are great program project managers. So I think finding the thing that really resonates with you is important, and it's going to be super valuable to whatever entrepreneur you work with.
Oh, absolutely. We talk a lot at Prowess. I always described my background as a patchwork quilt because it was so all over the place. I always say, like, I started and stopped so many things, and it wasn't until later on when I looked, like you said, I looked back and I said, oh wait, now it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But I love how you're talking about applying those things, but not just for that client, for yourself and growing the business that you want to have. And I just love the way that you've put all of this together and then you talk about it. But then not only that, now you're helping kind of raise the vibration for these other companies in your work. Do you want to talk a little bit about like your approach that you have with your clients?
Yeah, I do. Because you're making me remember too, part of my journey. At one point I said, I never want to work with corporate, right? I had just had, if looking from the outside, it looks like success, right? Like this person is, director and then VP, and it looks very successful, but I didn't feel that. And so I didn't feel authentic and I didn't feel aligned. And so when I first started coaching, I was like, I am not going to be a corporate coach. I'm going to be a life coach or business coach. And I coached a lot of women because I think I had a little bit of PTSD from some of the advertising bro culture, diminishing of women, as I'm sure many of us have. And so it really was interesting that I always had a few corporate people asking me, well, would you coach me? I'm struggling with this, or I'm starting a business. I'm a startup founder, and I believed in the mission of that company. And so I was like, okay, I just follow my intuition about who I wanted to work with as well. And then, especially right when the pandemic hit, it was like a flood of requests for support because people didn't know how to manage people remotely, and everyone's freaking out and everyone's reconsidering their whole life journey and their career journeys. And so I've come back just in the last 5 years to really serve. Like now it's like 95% corporate and 5% entrepreneur clients. And our vision at People at the Center, that's my company, is to bring humanity back into business. And I say, we have lost our humanity at the altar of productivity.
Wow.
And if you look at that, right, like, how did we get here? We have all this technology that helps us work better and faster, but we just pile more on. And people are so burnt out. Like every HR organization is talking about how people are burnt out, right? And then when you take a break, like the pandemic gave you, or maybe for some of you as a caregiver, and then you look back and go like, man, I don't really want to go back into that. Like for what? Like why? Like, is it worth it? Is just the paycheck worth it? So there's another way, and I think especially women, so many women are just saying, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to create a new way. So what we're doing at People at the Center is trying to create people-centric organizations that value the human being, as well as boost the bottom line, because we know when your employees are lit up and excited and working together well and pouring their love on the clients, that your organization is going to flourish. When you care about the people first, when you put them at the center, everything else is going to get better. That's our vision. So that's what we're supporting right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for supporting that, because it's absolutely needed. And I think that's something I hear so often is people that are deciding to leave corporate, right? And then take their skills and build their own online business manager business, is because exactly what you're talking about. So, I think it's so important. Do you have any advice for that person that might be sitting in that spot where they are thinking about doing this, making this change? Take, like you're talking about the very brave journey that you took. Do you have any advice for people that are sitting in like on that fence?
Yeah, I actually pulled this quote in preparation for our talk today, because this quote, when I heard it, was really powerful for me, and I'm happy to share it. Or if Natalie, want to look it up online, the person is Maxwell Maltz, and he said, "A step in the wrong direction is better than staying on the spot all your life. Once you're moving forward, you can correct your course as you go. Your automatic guidance system cannot guide you when you're standing still." So for me, it was one of my mentors that shared that with me, and I was like, OMG, like I in that moment had been standing still. I was like waiting to be super sure, or waiting to have it all figured out and all worked out, or waiting for some sign, or waiting to feel more confident, waiting to feel more ready, getting ready to get ready to get ready. And it's like, oh yeah, you just got to try something. So for me, that was a little bit of, in the beginning of my coaching, I was like, what's my niche? Everybody pressures you to have a niche. What's your niche? And I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, well, I'm happy to have created a life I love. And so that's what I'm going to help other people with. And I'm just going to invite a bunch of people and then start working with them and see, who do I really like? Do I like, my mom was in my first course because she wanted to start her art business and put up a website with her watercolor painting, and it didn't matter. I just wanted to serve. So I think that that's the thing I want to leave people with is just start moving forward. If you want to do a side hustle, if you've got an idea, if you want to get trained as an OBM and a lot of my clients who started business just got a first client. And then they were like, oh, yeah, they're going to be the next client and the next client. And you kind of have to just make up your mind that you're going to do it, because we wait for the results in order to commit, but we need to commit in order for the results to follow.
Oh, wow. Everyone better write that one down. That is so true. And I think sometimes it's like that spark, all of a sudden it's there and you're like, I can't put this out. Like, right. You just start to feel it and it's pulling in you in that direction. And what I'm hearing from you saying is like, it's your permission to follow it, that it's okay if it doesn't look like that exact path that we thought we were going to be on. Because especially the people the OBMs that I talk to, they have the skills. You said it's waiting for that confidence, and the confidence doesn't come until you start taking the action a lot of times.
That's right. Because competence is what builds confidence.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right. And so we need to work towards clarity. Like, what is it that I want to do, and start walking down the path so that your GPS can say turn right or turn left or make a U-turn, because it's like that. It's like when you're in your car and it's like, proceed to the route before it could tell you like go right or go left. And then once you're taking some steps forward, then the path reveals itself. You'll start to see, okay, I think I like this. I think I, want to do this. But I just want to say, Leah, too, like what you guys have developed is so powerful, because you create the structures and the systems for people to be successful in this themselves. And I think a lot of us, like, I didn't have that. Like, I was just kind of flailing and like making it up, how am I going to be a coach? Well, I knew a couple of other coaches and I asked them, how do you get clients? And they're like, just go talk to your network. And so at least you have like, here are the foundational things and here's how you do it. And then you help with matching them with people. And I just, so thank you for what you're doing too, because I think that's a huge service.
Well, thank you. I always joke that I'm like, I don't want anyone else to have to try and reach the end of Google figuring this out. So we are happy to share. And again, and I talked about my patchwork quilt, and we talked a little bit about this before we were live, was that I come from like the human service world, and the term person-centered was like how we did treatment plans, right? So I also just want to say, I love that that's part of your business, is putting that person back into the focus of the why you're doing things. Can you share a little bit of like, you talked about what you do, but also like if they're working with someone, if an OBM is working with someone where this might be beneficial, like how does that look for you?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work with people who are really trying to reach something that they're not quite sure how to get there, right? Because I think that is one of the best gifts of coaching, is that inside of that relationship container, you have permission to dream into what is it that you really want to do, and how are you going to close the gap between where you are now and where you want to be, and what are some sequential steps, and then how do you deal with all the mindset blocks that are inevitably going to come up when you face that. So if you're going through something like that, if there's anything I could do to support you, I'm happy to do that. I think oftentimes OBMs will refer us to their executives that they're working for, because they see, oh my gosh, and they're not in the place to be able to say all of the time, like, hey, I think you need some coaching around this, or you really benefit from a coach there. So you can share things like our newsletter. So if you go to peopleatthecenter.com, you can sign up there. We also have a newsletter on LinkedIn. So if you just go to my LinkedIn page, which I know the link is going to be on here, but it's LinkedIn/in/ just Kim Carpenter, all one word. We really are committed to posting helpful tips and suggestions. And then if you work with a larger team where you think that, getting human-centric leadership practices as a team would be useful, we do a lot of work with teams, and we coach teams of people on how to work together well, how to have challenging conversations, how to have effective feedback conversations, how to work through big problems together, how to understand each other's communication styles and things like that, because that really is the foundation of everything, is how well you're able to communicate and work through hard stuff together, because that's inevitably going to come up. And those are the things when leaders and teams aren't able to do that, that just stops business effectiveness.
Oh, absolutely. We talk a lot about that here, of like getting all of that. I always encourage OBMs to have that first kind of tough conversation of, how do you like to communicate? Because when you know it, when you have that, you put it on that playing field, then relationships can go smoother, right? You can always adjust, but at least you know. So I love that. What's next for you? I mean, the adventure sounds amazing so far. What's next for you?
It's so funny. Well, I like to tell people I've had this really wild adventure. I've lived in Tokyo, New York, Canada, California, and now I'm a stepmom in the suburbs in Dallas, Texas. And it cracks me up, because if you told my 25-year-old self that I was going to be a stepmom in the suburbs, but I couldn't be happier, y'all, really. And so now I'm just in the process of really growing my team. So I have 8 other coaches that are on my bench. And so I can bring people in and expand or contract based on the size of the engagement that we get. And so we're working more with companies and longer term engagements where we're coaching multiple people. We're running programs for new managers, training them up on management skills, and really helping organizations build that people-centered leader pipeline even before they need it. Because you've probably heard that there's a shortage in skilled labor. And as we move into the AI age, it's just going to get even more complex. And I'm writing a book. And yeah, and so the book I'm super excited about and terrified. So I don't have the name yet, but it's basically going to be about how do you create a people at the center organization. And so we're going to look back at, how did we get here? Everything from, ideas of productivity from Greek philosophy and productivity models from the industrial age, and also some shocking models that is not taught in business school around productivity that actually come out of slavery and plantation management and things like that, that are directly related to how we manage people in business now. And it's like, whoa, what? And, I'd like to share with people that idea of an 8-hour day, a 40-hour work week, is based on factory workers and the amount of time that they were able to stand up and stay productive. And so now we've just plopped that down into our time, which we are knowledge workers. It's not about making a widget faster. We need the space and the capacity for productivity in order to come up with ingenious ideas or innovate on something, or, look at models for making something more efficient. Like, we're using our minds. And so that doesn't equal an 8-hour focused block of work. It doesn't translate. And so I think as I've learned about this, I think it's so interesting to talk about that. And then we're going to look at, where are we now? And we've had this huge pendulum swing in people-centric cultures from, DEI movements and really embracing everyone's differences. So now that's being torn apart and maybe eradicated. We don't know, and so where are we now? And then how do we move forward? What is it really going to take for us to create the future of work that is people-centric? What are the principles and the guidelines and really the standards? And so there are things in the world like Great Place to Work or even B corporations that have some of those standards laid out, but no one's telling you, like, how do you do it? Like what are the core principles of how you create that? And so that's the mission right now, Leah. It's not a small one, but I'm super excited, and we're looking at the book coming out this fall.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. I'm definitely going to keep my eye out for that. So you have to let us know over here at
Yeah.
Prowess. Because I think it is so needed. And I know a lot of our OBMs work with CEO that maybe they're in their second or third iteration of their career where they have started something that out of passion, right? It's something they're tired of the other one. And now they don't know how to do that though. They were real successful in corporate. They don't know how to do that. So I just want to encourage everyone to check out your newsletters, to check out your sites for that, because one, I think it's in all of us, but then also people that we want to support and the people that we want to help elevate. And that's not an easy thing to do. So again, I applaud you for the work that you do, because it's a big mystery, and I love how you're tackling it out there. And then, but just keeping that momentum going, I think is going to be just so important.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're about time. Is there anything that you would like to leave this group with, especially when last week we talked a lot about pivoting in our careers, making changes? Any words of encouragement?
Yeah. And if you could just peek at the chat, and if anybody has any questions, if you could please, post them there, I'm happy to answer. Yeah, I would say just, back to that message of betting on yourself and believing in yourself, and honoring those still small whispers when they come up, and say, what about this? Like, could we do this? Like, could this actually be possible? And I've seen it time and again in the clients that I work with who are business owners, people who've left corporate to go and start their own things. It is a journey, and you've got to keep coming back to that commitment. And it's really a commitment in yourself. But at the end of the day, if you look around, it's also a commitment to everyone whose lives you touch. So if you have children, the role model that you are for them, your family, your future generations. And I think that we sometimes keep ourselves small and safe when we want to take that risk, because it's scary, and it is. I'm not diminishing that. Like, it really, really takes a lot of courage to do it. And I just want to say, I believe in you, and believe in yourself, and surround yourself with people like this community that are going out, what I call like dancing on the skinny branches, like not at the trunk of the tree that's safe, but like we got to be on the skinny branches. And if we can be out there together and keep cheering each other on, it's just a lot more fun.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm going to keep replaying just that part right there. Just the staying on the skinny branches is so important. And I think going back to something you said in the very beginning too, is about just journaling about this, right? Like that's such a great tip, is that if you don't feel like you have that community yet, or you're still getting to know it, writing these things down, right? Like, again, what is that little spark that keeping it going there is so important too.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. This has been some fabulous insight, and I know our audience is just going to eat it up. We'll put the links for Kim in the notes, so those are there. And again, reach out if you guys have questions, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, Leah.
Thanks, everybody.